A woman is standing at the edge of a gas station payphone in Barstow, California. It is August 1971. The temperature is 107 degrees, and the asphalt is soft enough to leave footprints. She is wearing a black dress that she has worn for 6 days straight. In her left hand is a handset she has already put down and picked back up 3 times in the last 4 minutes. She is not talking. She is trying to remember how to breathe. 11 feet away, leaning against the hood of a tan Ford pickup with Nevada plates, is a man in a canvas work shirt and faded Levi's who has not moved in 90 seconds. He is watching her the way a man watches something that matters. Not intrusively, not casually, but with the particular attention of someone deciding whether the situation calls for him. The woman does not know who he is. She is too far inside her own grief to recognize anyone. The man pushes off the hood. He walks toward her. He does not hurry. He does not announce himself. He just moves with a deliberateness that the 3 other people at that gas station will remember for the rest of their lives. And each of them, when asked about it later, will say the same thing. It wasn't what he did first. It was how still he was before he did it. This is that story. Barstow, California sits at the junction of Interstates 15 and 40, 141 miles northeast of Los Angeles, in the western reaches of the Mojave Desert. In August 1971, it is a town of approximately 17,000 people, most of whom are connected in some way to either the railroad or the military installations that ring the area. The gas station in question is a Standard Oil franchise on Main Street, 2 blocks west of the Mojave River Bridge, with a single pay phone mounted on the outside wall beside the restroom key. The time is 2:14 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, August 17, 1971. The heat is not the dry, pleasant warmth that people associate with California. This is Mojave heat, the kind that presses down from above and radiates back up from the ground simultaneously, so that you feel cooked from both directions at once. The air smells of hot oil and road tar, and the particular mineral sharpness that baked desert sand carries when the temperature clears 100. There is no shade at this gas station except for a narrow strip along the south wall, and the woman at the pay phone has not stepped into it. Her name is Margaret Ellen Corliss. She is 44 years old. She was born in Flagstaff, Arizona, in 1927, married Robert Corliss in 1949, raised 2 children in a house on the north side of Kingman, and spent 22 years building a life that, on August 11, 1971, 6 days before this moment, came apart in a way she had not prepared for. Robert Corliss was 47. He was a machinist. He worked at a facility outside Kingman that manufactured parts for agricultural equipment. He was the kind of man who came home at the same time every night, and whose reliability was so complete that the absence of it, when it finally came, felt to the people around him less like a death and more like a law of physics being repealed. He died of a cardiac event on the morning of August 11th, on the floor of the facility's break room, with 2 colleagues present. He was pronounced dead at the hospital at 9:47 a.m. His wallet contained $34. His life insurance policy, which Margaret had not examined in years, had lapsed in February 1971 due to a billing error that neither of them had caught. The house carried a mortgage with 14 years remaining. The savings account contained $1,400. Margaret's sister lives in Riverside, California, 123 miles southwest of Barstow. Margaret has been driving toward her sister's house for 3 days, stopping in motel rooms along the way, making phone calls she can barely complete, trying to locate the administrative paperwork that a death generates, which is more than any person in grief should be expected to manage. The call she is now attempting to complete from the Standard Oil pay phone is to the Kingman branch of the Arizona State Bank. She is trying to understand whether the $1,400 is enough to cover the funeral home's second payment, which is due in 4 days. The bank representative she spoke with this morning told her she needed a specific account number from a document she left in the house. She has called the house twice. No one answers because there is no one in the house. She is standing in 107-degree heat, trying to remember the number from memory. She cannot remember it. She has been trying for 4 minutes. The pen in her hand has run dry on the back of a gas receipt, and she has nothing to write with, and she cannot remember the number, and the heat is pressing down, and she puts the phone handset back in the cradle for the 3rd time and does not pick it up again. Instead, she puts both hands against the wall below the phone and bends forward slightly and makes a sound that is not quite crying, It is the sound a person makes when the crying has been happening for 6 days and the body is running out of the mechanism for it. 3 people are present. A teenage boy filling a tank on the far side of the pump island. A station attendant through the glass of the office window. And the man in the canvas work shirt, who has been at this station for 7 minutes, who stopped here because his truck needed water in the radiator, who was in the process of replacing the radiator cap when he heard the sound. He heard it from 11 feet away over the ambient noise of Interstate 15 traffic. He stopped what he was doing. He watched for 90 seconds without moving. And then he pushed off the hood of the truck. But here's where it changes. Because what John Wayne did next was not what anyone at that gas station, and not what Margaret Corliss expected. And what it produced in the weeks and months that followed was something that 3 of the 4 people present carried with them for the rest of their lives and told to their children, and their children's children, as a story about what a man actually is when the cameras aren't rolling. John Wayne in August 1971 is 64 years old and has been in 142 films. He won the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1970 for True Grit and gave a speech that lasted 38 seconds. He has a production company, a ranch in Arizona, and a house in Newport Beach. He is, by any measurement the industry uses, at the top of the thing he has spent his life building. He is also, in August 1971, driving alone across the Mojave because he prefers it. Wayne's son, Ethan, will later describe his father's desert drives as a habit that went back 30 years, a way of restoring something that the business of being John Wayne had a tendency to drain. He drives without a destination fixed in advance, stops when the truck needs something or when he needs something, and returns to Newport Beach when he is ready to return. He does not bring an assistant. He does not call ahead. He fills his own radiator. He is wearing, on this afternoon, a canvas work shirt in a faded olive color, Levi's that have been washed enough times to be soft, and work boots with the kind of wear on the soles that comes from actual use rather than costume. He is not in a hat. His hair is gray at the temples and white at the back, and he has not combed it since this morning. He looks like a man who works with his hands and is comfortable with that fact. He is 6 feet 4 inches and 220 pounds, and the size of him is not something you absorb all at once. It arrives in stages. First you register the height. Then, a beat later, the width of the shoulders. Then the hands, which are the hands of a man who has been doing physical work since he was 19 years old, loading props on the USC film lots, wrangling horses on location in Monument Valley, roughing out the physical business of 40 years of filmmaking. The hands are large enough and specific enough in their wear that people who meet Wayne for the first time often look at them before they look at his face. The teenage boy at the pump island is the first person to recognize him. The recognition happens at the moment Wayne steps away from the truck. Something in the movement, the particular way the weight shifts, the economy of it, and the boy's hand stops on the pump handle and stays there for a full 3 seconds while his mind processes the information. He does not say anything. This is partly because he is 16 years old and does not know what to say. But it is also, as he will explain years later, because something in the way the man is moving communicates that an interruption would be inappropriate. Wayne walks to the payphone. He stops 2 feet to Margaret Corliss's left. He does not touch her shoulder. He does not clear his throat. He does not announce his presence. He simply stands there, and after a moment he says, in a voice pitched low enough that only she can hear it, "Ma'am, I've got a pen if you need one." Margaret Corliss turns and looks at him. She does not recognize him. She will not recognize him for another 4 minutes. What she sees is a large man in a work shirt holding out a ballpoint pen, and she takes it without fully processing who is offering it, because the pen is what she needs and the need is more present than anything else. What happened next, nobody expected. There is no confrontation here in the conventional sense. No antagonist. No challenger. The challenge, in this story, is the situation itself. It is 107 degrees and a woman is alone in it with $1,400, a lapsed insurance policy, and a 14-year mortgage, and the administrative apparatus of death that no one teaches you to navigate and that does not pause for grief. That is the thing Wayne is standing next to. That is the thing he has decided to do something about. Margaret takes the pen. She turns back to the phone. She picks up the handset and dials the bank's number again, which she has memorized from the slip of paper she found this morning. And when the representative answers, she says, with the specific steadiness of a person who has decided to get through the next 3 minutes on willpower, that she needs to verify an account balance, and she has the account number wrong on her document, and can they locate the account under the name Robert David Corliss, KGNGMAN, Arizona branch. She is writing on the back of the gas receipt. The pen works. She writes the number. She writes the balance the representative confirms. $1,400 and some change. She asks about the process for accessing funds from a deceased account holder's joint account and listens to the answer, which is not a good answer in the sense that it does not solve her problem, but is a clear answer in the sense that she now knows exactly what problem she has. She thanks the representative and hangs up. She stands at the wall for a moment with the pen in one hand and the gas receipt in the other, and the information she has just gathered sitting in her mind like a stone. Wayne has not moved. He is standing 2 feet to her left in the heat, in no apparent hurry, as though he has arrived at the specific location he intended to arrive at today. Margaret turns to return the pen. She looks at his face for the first time with the full attention she could not give it before. The recognition is not immediate. It happens in a sequence. The jaw first, then the eyes, then some combination of height and proportion that triggers the thing the brain does when it tries to reconcile the face of someone famous with the physical reality of them standing 3 feet away. She says, "You're John Wayne." He says, "Yes, ma'am." She looks at him for a moment. She says, "I'm sorry." "I'm not. I'm having a day." He says, "Don't apologize." He puts the pen in his shirt pocket. "You doing all right?" And here is where the first truth of this story arrives. Because Margaret Corliss, who has been managing the information of her husband's death for 6 days with the particular dignity that a certain kind of woman maintains because she does not know what else to do with it, looks at John Wayne standing in the Mojave heat and says, without quite intending to, "No." She pauses. "I'm not." The station attendant, watching through the glass, will later describe the moment as the one where he understood something was happening that he should stay out of. He did not come outside for another 14 minutes. He has thought about that decision for the rest of his life as one of the correctly made ones. Wayne nods. He says, "You want to sit somewhere out of the sun and tell me about it?" She looks at him. He is not performing this offer. There is no performance in his face, no calculated warmth, no star being gracious. He is simply asking the way a man asks when he means the question. She says, "All right." They walk to a concrete bench along the south wall of the station, in the narrow strip of shade, and they sit down, and John Wayne listens. What Wayne does for the next 47 minutes is not dramatic. It does not photograph well. It would not cut together into a scene that anyone would call cinematic. It is, in the language of film, the kind of thing that ends up on the cutting room floor because nothing explodes and no one throws a punch and the resolution does not announce itself. And it is, if you understand what it costs a person to do it correctly, one of the most skilled things John Wayne ever did. He listens. First, he does not offer solutions or perspective or comfort of the kind that has a shape to it. He asks questions that are specific and practical. How many days since the death? What does the insurance situation look like? What is the balance on the mortgage? Who is the mortgage held with? What is the name of the funeral home? What is the outstanding balance? He has a notebook in the truck, and he goes and gets it, and he writes things down. Margaret, who has been carrying this information in her head for 6 days without being able to put it anywhere, watches him write and feels something she will describe later as the first moment she understood that it might be manageable. Not good, not easy, but manageable. The act of someone else writing the numbers down makes them smaller. Makes them a list instead of a weight. In the first 10 minutes, Wayne establishes the financial picture in full. The funeral home in Kingman is owed $840, due in 4 days. The mortgage is held with First Federal Savings of Arizona, Kingman branch. The account access issue, a joint account that now requires a death certificate and a probate filing to convert to a sole ownership account, is a standard process that runs 6 to 8 weeks, and that Margaret does not have 6 to 8 weeks to wait for, because the funeral home payment does not wait. He does not tell her it will be fine. He does not say anything that is not true. He writes the numbers and the names and the due dates, and he looks at what he has written, and he says, "Okay, here's what this actually is." What it actually is a cash flow problem. Not a poverty problem, not an unsolvable problem. The mortgage on the house, with 14 years remaining, means there is equity. The house is worth more than what is owed on it, which means the house is an asset, which means Margaret is not without resources. The immediate problem is that the resources cannot be accessed fast enough to cover the immediate obligations. That is a different problem than having no resources. Margaret listens to this. She says, I didn't think of it that way. Wayne says, most people don't when they're in it. He turns a page in the notebook. But that's what it is. So the question is what you can cover now and what needs to wait and how to make the two things match. The station attendant, who has come outside by this point and is pretending to do something with an air hose 12 feet away, will later say, I didn't know what I was watching. I just knew it was something. What it is this. John Wayne, who has been managing money since 1930, who understands mortgages and cash flow and the specific arithmetic of a life built on inconsistent income. Because Hollywood income is inconsistent income, and always has been, is applying 40 years of practical financial navigation to the specific situation of a widow at a gas station in the Mojave Desert. He covers the funeral home first. The $840 due in 4 days. He asks if there is a family member who could advance the funds against the eventual sale or refinancing of the house, which will take 3 to 4 months, but will resolve the larger picture. Margaret says her sister in Riverside might be able to help with part of it. Wayne writes down the sister's name and says, call her before you leave today. Tell her the exact amount and the exact date. People can help when the number is specific. They can't help as well when it's just bad. He goes through each item. The bank account access process. He tells her to call the probate court in Mojave County on Thursday morning, first thing, and ask specifically about a small estate affidavit, which in Arizona in 1971 can expedite access to joint accounts under $30,000 without a full probate proceeding. This is not commonly known. He knows it because his own attorney explained it to him in 1965 during a period when Wayne's own finances were complicated. He writes, small estate affidavit. Mojave County probate. Thursday a.m. Margaret looks at the words. She says, how do you know all this? Wayne says, I've had my own version of this problem. He pauses. Money doesn't get complicated in new ways. It gets complicated in the same ways over and over, with different names on the documents. She says, but he says, I'm a man who's been broke and not broke and in between, and I know what the paperwork looks like. That's all. He is not performing humility. He is making a practical point about the universality of financial distress and the difference between a problem that is familiar with a solution and a problem that is only unfamiliar. There is a silence that lasts approximately 5 seconds. The boy at the pump island has not moved in 11 minutes. The station attendant has stopped pretending to do anything with the air hose. Wayne closes the notebook. He tears out the 2 pages he has written on. He hands them to Margaret. He says, you've got the information now. It's not fixed, but it's not as big as it was this morning. Margaret takes the pages. She looks at them. She says, I keep thinking I should have known about the insurance. Wayne says, you didn't know. That's a different thing than doing nothing. She looks at him. He says, your husband paid that premium for 22 years. The one that lapsed was a billing error. That's not a choice. That's a piece of mail that didn't go right. He pauses. Don't carry that one. It's not yours. She does not say anything for a moment. Then she says, my children are going to ask me what to do. Wayne says, tell them you already did the hard part. Then read them the list. What happened in the next 60 seconds? Nobody at that station could have anticipated when the day started. Margaret Corliss, who has been holding the structure of her composure together with the specific energy of a person who has decided that falling apart in public is not something she is willing to do, puts the 2 notebook pages carefully in her purse and sits up straight and says, thank you. Not the way people say thank you when they are being polite. The way people say it when something has genuinely been given to them and they understand what it was. Wayne says, drive safe across the desert. Get out of the heat before 5 o'clock. He stands up. The temperature drops 8 degrees after sundown. He walks back to his truck. He checks the radiator cap. He gets in. He does not look back. He is not performing the exit. He is simply done with what he came to do and is now going to the next place. The truck pulls out of the Standard Oil station at 3:04 in the afternoon. Margaret sits on the bench for another 2 minutes with the pages in her purse and the heat pressing down and something shifted in the architecture of the day. Not fixed, not solved, but shifted, the way a room shifts when someone opens a window. That's not a celebrity being kind. That's a man doing the specific work of helping because he understands the specific problem. Margaret Corliss reaches her sister's house in Riverside at 6:47 that evening. She calls the funeral home from her sister's kitchen. She calls the probate court number she has written on the notebook page and leaves a message for Thursday morning. Her sister advances $600, which combined with the savings account covers the funeral home balance. She does not tell her sister, that first night, about the man at the gas station. She will later describe the reason as follows. I wasn't sure what it was yet. I knew something had happened, but I didn't know what to call it. What happened when Margaret finally understood it was this. John Wayne had not done a famous person's version of helping. He had not signed an autograph and said something encouraging. He had not written a check, which he could easily have done. He had not made a gesture that was primarily about the gesture. He had sat in the heat for 47 minutes and done the actual work of figuring out what the problem was and what to do about it. He had brought his notebook. He had asked the questions that mattered. He had written down the information and given it to the person who needed it, and when the emotional weight of the situation surfaced, he had addressed it with the same directness he had applied to the financial questions. Not with comfort, but with precision. Your husband paid that premium for 22 years. The one that lapsed was a billing error. Don't carry that one. It's not yours. Precision is a form of kindness that does not get enough credit. Margaret writes Wayne a letter in October 1971. She sends it to the production company address, which she finds in a phone directory. She does not expect a response. She writes to complete something, to close the circuit of the exchange, to put into words the things she has been trying to describe since August. She writes, "You gave me back the ability to think. When you sat down, I was inside the problem with no outside. You made it outside. I don't know how else to say it." She writes, "My children are doing all right. The house is still mine. I went back to work in September at the school district office, and the work helps. I read your list every week for the first month. Now I have it in my head." She writes, "I didn't know who you were when I took the pen. I want you to know that. You were just a man who had a pen and asked if I needed it." She signs it, M. Corliss, Riverside, California. Wayne receives the letter. His assistant, Mary St. John, who has managed his correspondence since 1948, will later note that it was one of a specific category of letters that Wayne read more than once. She does not specify what the category is. She does not need to. The letters in that category are the ones from people who met him when he was not John Wayne in any useful sense. When he was just a man in working clothes doing what he thought needed doing. He responds in November 1971. The letter is 4 sentences. He writes, "I'm glad the list helped. You did the hard part. You asked the right person in the right moment. That was you, not me. Take care of yourself and those kids." He signs it, Duke. There is a private thing in Wayne's response that does not need to be stated, but is worth understanding. The acknowledgement, "You asked the right person in the right moment," is not a deflection. It is a philosophical point. Wayne has, over 40 years in a business that consistently misreads the relationship between a person's fame and their actual self, developed a specific understanding of where help comes from. Help comes from the willingness to receive it, not the celebrity of the person offering it. A man who waits to be saved by a famous person will wait a long time. A woman who turns when someone says they have a pen and says, "Yes, I need it," and uses it, and asks the next question. That woman is already doing the thing. She just needs the platform for a few minutes. Wayne once said to his son Michael, during a conversation in 1974, something that Michael repeated in a 1993 interview. "Your reputation can buy you things, but it can't do things for anyone. You do things." The two are not the same, and confusing them is how people end up with a lot of reputation and not much else. In 1978, 7 years after the afternoon at the Standard Oil station, Margaret Corliss's daughter, Patricia, is 23 years old and working at the Riverside County Clerk's office. She is helping a woman navigate the paperwork associated with the death of the woman's husband. The woman does not know what a small estate affidavit is. The process she needs is slow, and the money she needs is not slow enough to wait for the process. Patricia explains the small estate affidavit. She explains the difference between a cash flow problem and a larger structural problem. She explains that what the woman has is the first kind, not the second, and that this is important to understand because the feeling they produce is similar, but the solutions are very different. The woman asks Patricia how she knows this. Patricia says, "My mother figured it out when my father died. She had help." She does not say who the help was. The information isn't the point. The method is the point. The method is, sit down in the heat with the person, write down the numbers, find out what the actual problem is, and give them the information they need to act. That is not a famous person's method. That is a person's method. John Wayne died on June 11th, 1979, at Hoag Hospital in Newport Beach, California. He was 72 years old. He had been ill for 4 years and had worked for most of them. His last public appearance was at the Academy Awards in April 1979, 8 weeks before his death, and he walked to the microphone under his own power and said what he had to say and walked back. He did not make a speech about his life. He was not given to that. Margaret Corliss learned of his death from the television news. She was in her kitchen in Riverside. She sat down and did not move for a while. Her daughter Patricia was in the other room and heard the television and came in and found her mother sitting at the kitchen table with a particular quality of stillness on her face. Patricia says, "Mom?" Margaret says, "He helped me at a gas station once. A long time ago." Patricia says, "I know." Margaret looks at her. "You know?" Patricia says, "You told me once when I was little, and then you didn't talk about it again. I didn't know it was him until later." Margaret nods. She is quiet for a moment. She says, "He had a pen." She says it the way you say a thing that contains more than it appears to, the way a physical detail stands in for an entire architecture of meaning, because the meaning is too large to say directly. He had a pen and he walked over and he sat down and he wrote the numbers and he said, "Don't carry that one, it's not yours." And then he got in his truck and drove into the desert, and she sat on a concrete bench in the shade with the pages in her purse and the work ahead of her, and she did the work. Years later, 47 minutes at a gas station in Barstow. 4 sentences in a letter from Newport Beach. The woman who received the pen made it through. Her children made it through. Her daughter now gives the same kind of help to strangers in a government office and explains the small estate affidavit the same way Wayne explained it. Clearly, practically, without making the person feel diminished by the not knowing. And the women in that Riverside office who receive that help carry it in their own way and pass some portion of it forward without always knowing where it came from. That is not charity. That is not celebrity. That is a man who understood that the space between a person in crisis and a person who can help is crossed in 11 feet if you're willing to walk them. Return to the image at the beginning. A woman at a pay phone in 107-degree heat with a dry pen. A man against the hood of a truck who watches for 90 seconds and decides. The decision is the whole thing. The decision is what everything else grows out of. The skill and the notebook and the 47 minutes and the 4 sentences in November. All of it is downstream of the 90 seconds when he watched and decided that this was his business. He decided it was his business. Not because she was famous. Not because there was an audience. Not because anyone would remember. 3 people at a Standard Oil station and a concrete bench in the shade. That was the whole room. He didn't wait to be asked. He didn't offer from a distance. He walked 11 feet and said, "I've got a pen if you need one." 1 sentence. 1 decision. 1 afternoon that history almost entirely missed. There are 27 films in the John Wayne canon that critics still teach. There are academic papers about his relationship to American masculinity and the mythology of the West. There are retrospectives and anniversary screenings, and the specific kind of cultural conversation that happens around a figure who outlasted the era that produced him. None of that is the pen. The pen is the thing. A man carried a pen. A woman needed one. He walked over. That's not legend. That's not mythology. That's the quietest possible version of what a person actually is when you take the hat and the credits and the icon away and leave just the man standing at a gas station in the Mojave with nothing to gain and a choice to make. He made it. 47 minutes. For witnesses. 1 lesson that almost nobody knew for 50 years. But there is a story, one that John Wayne told only once, in a private conversation that was written down by someone who was not supposed to be listening, about a different kind of help he gave. Not to a stranger. To someone he loved. And the reason he never spoke of it publicly, the reason that story stayed buried for decades, has everything to do with the philosophy you just watched in action at that gas station. That story is for another time.